Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of With That Being Said from the Brothers Blue. Uh, Today, we are going to be discussing the hot button topic of shmamortion. And without a doubt, our video will be flagged because of the content. And with that being said, I'm Brother Kyle.
And I'm Brother Cody. And so the first thing that, I want to talk about is honestly the subject that we talked about earlier, so we can just kind of get it out of the way. And that is that, so I used to say that I prescribe to the label of vote blue no matter who. And that's still true because of the one issue that I care about. And the one issue is shmamortion. So if I were to flesh it out or develop it more, then I could say I'm not just a vote blue no matter who guy. I'm a one issue voter. And my one issue is abortion. So, and you weren't having a good time with it earlier, but my answer is yes. If a Republican was like, I want to take your guns away. And again, I know this isn't the Republican that's going to say this, but he's like, I want to take your guns away and I want to ban public health care, but I also want to give women the choice. Then I'm going to vote for that guy because A, my guns are not going to be taken away, and B, I don't use public health care. So, yeah, my one issue is pro-choice, and that's the only issue that I have, and I will die on a mountain fighting for that or voting for that one issue.
Yeah, and again, I'm kind of glad we flashed this out earlier because, like, um, yeah, I just don't agree with
Right.
the one issue voting thing. And but I do like the one thing I will relate to this, and this is in my notes, and it's later, but we always do this is like we get to my notes not in a chronological order, but the reality of what you're talking about is that of legislation, passing law. You were talking about being a one issue voter.
Yeah.
I voted on Prop 139 on my ballot like 5 days ago. And this is the Arizona proposition regarding abortion access. And that's what I'm saying is like, yeah, I'm not a one issue voter because guess what? I voted on like 7 other propositions.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand. Um,
sorry, that's all.
no, that's fine because I think it doesn't go. And actually, your first note is kind of where we could go with it, because my other 2 points are not about the legislative part of this. And I think your note very, very well sums up that if you want to go over your first note.
Yeah. Sorry because it is quite extensive, but yeah. I obviously have a lot to say about this one because it is my most extensive like part of my notes. And it really just comes down to the idea that I am sort of upset that like people think that like it should be a states' right issue because first of all, like states' rights is how you get things like Jim Crow, and like that's like an obvious example of like okay, so we need uh federal legislation like the Civil Rights Act to make sure
Right.
that like Jim Crow is not happening.
Right.
And then yeah, sorry. The other point that I love to make is that like putting things back to the states and like the idea of like abolishing the 19th Amendment and
Right.
then just like putting the right for women to vote back to the states. It's like, okay, so we're taking a right that specifically is like impacts women and we are going to put that to the states. So like really like yeah, I don't know what you were going off of, but like there really are just like a lot of things in my opinion where it's like if you leave it up to the states, they're probably not going to do a good job. And there are simply like a lot of things that need to be legislated on a federal or national level.
Right. And so, like, I think a good example of this is the anecdotal examples throughout the country that are happening right now, where we have women in very, very dire health situations due to the fact that this federal legislation was overturned. And so that is like the really scary part. So, like, I don't have a daughter and, I'm divorced, but like, I couldn't imagine how I would feel if I had a daughter or if I was still married, like the safety that I would be worried about for my wife and things like that. And like, I'll get into the whole my wife and or my ex-wife and abortions. We'll get into that later. But your next one, I think, ties in well with so your first no, I think, is very important because it highlights the essential or it highlights the importance of Roe v. Wade being like it needs to be what's it called where it's like written into law. Yeah. But anyways, codified. It needs to be
Let it,
codified.
yeah, let or no codified, yeah.
Yeah, so it needs to be codified. But anyways, the next one it talks about 21 weeks or whatever. And so
Can I read my statistic and then let you elaborate on it?
yeah, go ahead, sure.
Yeah, so this is again, and like I've been doing a pretty good job of posting our sources, and I will post the source that I got this statistic specifically from, and it says, quote, abortions at or after 21 weeks are uncommon and represent 1% of all abortions in the United States, with the majority occurring before that threshold.
Yeah, right. And so like the two abortions that I paid for and my ex-wife got happened before that threshold. So there's that. Um, but my point on this one and my second point in the conversation is the science argument or the scientific way of looking at it because we just went over legislatively how it can be looked at, right? And where we stand on the issue due to legislation, right?
Yeah.
Right. So scientifically, according to the Google, human sentience begins between 18 and 25 weeks. And so there is a semantic conversation to be had about the difference between human sentience and human consciousness. That also is a Google search of mine to delve into. But I have so consciousness begins at uh, 30 weeks. So it's like it's several weeks, it's 12 weeks after sentience. But sentience talks about how sentience is when like pain receptors are able to process sensory signals and shit like that. Um
Okay, so hold on. Are
yeah, go ahead.
there like scientific indicators of consciousness? Because we know some people who are um like to talk about the conscious community, and I would like to bridge the gap between science and philosophy maybe, and that like again you just said sentience
Yep.
starts at a certain point
Yep.
and consciousness starts at a certain point. Are
Right.
those both scientifically established?
So this is research for us to do. Also, this is what I
Okay.
said is
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it is a semantical conversation to talk about the difference between sentience and consciousness, but maybe it's
Yeah.
not. Maybe it's not.
No.
Um, or
Yeah.
maybe it's an esoteric conversation. Um, but either way, the scientific community would say that sentience begins at 18 weeks at the earliest. So
Uh,
18 weeks is just shy of that of
21
21 week.
that
Yeah,
has. Yeah.
exactly. So,
And
but
it's
either way,
the
like that's
same.
my thing is like I think most abortions probably happen between 6 and 8 weeks. I would not be surprised if that's the actual data because like the two that I got were that.
Most people find out they're pregnant about 6 weeks
Right.
into, yeah. So yeah, that's another like fact that just like gets overlooked all the time is that like most people don't know they're pregnant until they're like well into their first trimester.
So sentience also has another fun kind of sub conversation for me at least, or when it comes to like the conscious community and shit like that. Because like like there's this I and this is something that I brought up to you. It's called panpsychism, and it's again, it's one of those things where it's not just where like you can just look at the roots of words and try to understand it. But panpsychism is basically the idea that molecules can have sentience, and so like the idea is that everything has a soul. Is the idea of panpsychism, which is a cool idea, but at the same time, I don't think that the molecules making up this microphone or the molecules making up this dish towel have sentience the way that a fetus does after 18 weeks. So, with that being said, the clump of cells that is a fetus prior to sentience, I don't see any moral. That's not murder. You can't kill this dish towel. You can't kill this microphone.
Yes. So
So
Uh, and I hate to like oversimplify something right now, but like the panpsychism thing is 100% related to the transmutation thing that I've been talking to you about. You remember that at all? No? Yeah. So transmutation is something that I've been hearing particularly I would say coming out of like the conscious community, and it is a sort of I understand that like panpsychism refers to a specific thing, but it is also like a sort of like all-encompassing theory, the way that transmutation is, and that's
the
all I
theory of
can,
everything.
yeah, really say about that, like, because unfortunately, I will look more into the panpsychism thing, but
And I think where the conversation was is that I need to look more into transmutation and you need to
yeah,
look more into panpsychism. So yeah.
but I have a feeling they're going to be very similar. Yeah, we strayed. Do you want
Probably.
to go back to
No, no, no,
your
no. No, no, no. We didn't
okay,
straight. We did legislation, we did science, and then my final point is personal. And so on the
hold on.
personal level, like, dude,
Yep. Hold on. Yeah.
can I go?
Yeah, go ahead. Fine.
So I've paid for two abortion. Like Danielle and I, while we were married, got two abortions. One happened after about 5 years of us being married. Cody was about 5 years old, and we were just, I think we had moved to Denver not too long ago, and we were just kind of still trying to get our footing. And like, Planned Parenthood was there in Denver and readily available. So like, we just did what we had to do. And this was a case where, again, she knew she was pregnant within like 6 or 8 weeks or something like that. And so that's the thing. That's why I said it earlier, is like, she found out she was pregnant, and then we got an abortion. Like, it wasn't any pussyfooting or waiting or anything like that. We just did it.
But you also are using it as like birth control, which
Yeah, totally. Because so that's actually, no, you're 100% right, because Danielle stopped taking birth control and I stopped using condoms because yeah, so this is so Danielle and I probably had unprotected sex roughly 1,000 times and got pregnant 3 times.
dude, I've I could get like Frank Reynolds dirty, be like dropping raw dog loads. Like, yeah, like
well, yes, that's what I was doing, but it was into my wife.
I've never been married, so yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I asked you this also. You've never gotten anyone pregnant either, have you?
Doesn't mean it wasn't highly possible in a lot of situations. Yeah.
All right. So Danielle had cervical cancer when she was in her teens and was told
yeah.
by gynecologists that she wouldn't have kids, and she doesn't get pregnant very easily. She got pregnant 3 times. We had the child once. And we had an abortion twice. It's pretty simple.
I have a whole lot of personal experience with it.
So my final note on the personal experience is that, like, I was happy, and I will vote to live in places where the access to abortion was readily available for us, because that's also, it's something that I texted you because it was something I saw on Jubilee. But this girl, she wouldn't budge on abortion, and I really dug it because what she said is at any time for any reason.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, dude, if you decide at 9 months that you don't want to have a kid, there you go. That's why.
None of your business.
And fuck you. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm glad we like come to a point of, and so like again, I don't have a whole lot of personal experience with it, and like I'm glad that you brought it back to the legislative part, because that is literally the only personal experience I have like with it. Is again the fact that I haven't gotten anybody pregnant is like crazy. But yeah, so that's really what I was trying to say when it came to the personal experience. But
oh yeah,
that's bad. I probably shouldn't have said. Anyways,
no, well, I never got Tara pregnant.
Literally collected hundreds of signatures to get abortion access on the ballot in Arizona. That is my personal experience legislatively. Like, you have a personal experience like on the personal side.
Right.
I have a personal experience where like I actively like change, because dude, and that's what I really like. Full circle is like with the overturning of Roe v. Wade in the state of Arizona, we were reversed to an 1864 territorial abortion law. We were under a law that was enacted before we were an actual state. And
yeah,
exactly. So the 1864 territorial abortion law is what was like in place, in action in Arizona. And I collected signatures to put a petition on the ballot
Right.
so that we could overturn that. And
Yeah.
I am pretty proud of that.
It's just
I
that's
walked around in 100-degree heat in Arizona and collected signatures to, yeah, change the law. So, yeah.
archaic, dude. They're fucking archaic
It's
laws.
archaic, yeah.
Yeah.
Anachronistic, yeah.
It's like, how is this? Th- it might as well be 2,000 years old.
Right? This might as well be a Roman law.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that's cool. The only other thing I had to talk about was like post-birth abortion, which is like not a thing. And we don't really need to talk about that, I think, because it's
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Actually, I did want to say one thing, because I didn't say it last week, and if I don't say it now, then I'll keep festering about it. But my final thought from our fucking appearance with Steven, and my final thought of what he had to say is that I really enjoyed. He was like, and it was when we were talking about lower frequency individuals, and he was like, I don't know exactly what he said, but he essentially was like, even if you're not on your spiritual journey, you should focus on being a good person. And that really resonates with me because I think you know who I am. And like, dude, that's what I just try to do every day. I try to be a good father. I try to be a good employee. I try to be a good worker. And like, I wasn't able to answer your call because I was going to pick up my kid. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So,
No, this
and this actually does tie into the abortion conversation because the one time we decided to not have an abortion is my reason for living. So,
okay. I don't that was pretty deep philosophical stuff, but like when it comes down to the like being a good person, it's and I'm just gonna yeah, dish on what you were saying is that it's a default, like
mhm,
being mean and bad to people. Like, I don't, when I am that way, I notice it and I don't feel good about it. Like,
right.
and so, like,
And
I
vice versa. It feels good to be nice.
exactly. That's really what I was like
Yeah.
getting at is like it feels really good to just like be happy all the time and
Yeah. Yeah.
fake it till you make it
Yeah.
basically.
So I finally finished my like remodel for downstairs, and once we get off, I'm actually gonna show you, and it's pretty exciting. So like, yeah, there's positive things, good things.
Yeah, good stuff. All
Yeah,
right. So with that being said,
knowledge is power.